You're an Ashley.
You do the voice better, though. I'm an Ashley?
You are absolutely an Ashley. Don't you agree?
Yeah, you're right. I'm an Ashley.
What I love about Recess is that I feel like of all the main characters, if you put them together, I feel like that would be me. And I guess everyone's like a combination of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But like I love sports like Vince. I love arts like, what's his name, Mikey. I feel like I'm a prankster like TJ. I get grumpy at people like Spinelli. I'm very academic like Gretchen.
Oh.
Not much Gus though, maybe.
No.
Because like so many shows and things like groupings, like the Ninja Turtles is like one of the best ones. Everyone's like one of them.
Yeah.
There's so many different things like where everyone has the same favorite character. Ninja Turtles is an exception. Like it's pretty much evenly split of who your
Sex
favorite
in the
Ninja Turtle.
City.
I'm a Charlotte, I think.
You're a Charlotte?
I don't know. I don't know.
Too.
Oh, then then I'm probably not. I don't think we would be the same.
No, I think you'd be a Charlotte.
And you're a Charlotte?
Yeah. Are we that different?
I think we're quite different.
Who am I then?
I don't know. I've never seen I've seen probably like an hour of Sex in the City total.
Maybe I'm a Carrie.
Is that who's that? The actor?
Sarah Jessica Parker.
All right. I actually don't know what the characters are like.
Okay.
You'd be the fanciest one.
That's Charlotte.
Oh, okay. Maybe then I'm not a Charlotte.
I think you're a Miranda.
I don't know who that is. I like the name though, and I like the soda.
If we use this in our intro, we're going to get lots of Twitter responses about what you are and what I am.
Perhaps, but I think our podcast presence is quite different from
I think so.
Because in the podcast, I feel like I kind of lead things a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
In real life, that's not the case.
Oh, then you're a Samantha. Podcast Samantha.
Wait, Samantha, like you?
No.
I'm confused now.
Okay, never mind.
All right, welcome to an episode of I Love This, You Should Too. My name is Indy Randhawa. If I were in Recess, I feel like I'm a combination of everyone. My favorite Ninja Turtle is Raphael. I think I'm do you say I'm a Samantha?
Yeah.
In what show is that?
Sex in the City?
Sex in the City. Then we can get into Scooby-Doo's later, but that's a whole nother thing. Whew. And with me is my lovely co-host Samantha. She's an Ashley in Recess for sure.
Yeah.
What else was there?
Ninja Turtles.
Who are you in a Ninja Turtle?
I don't know Ninja Turtles.
Do you have a favorite, or you don't know?
The green one?
Well, they're all green.
I don't know anything about Ninja Turtles.
Oh, okay. We should get into that one day.
Okay.
You might be a Michelangelo. He's a party dude.
Oh, yeah.
You're a party dude.
I do have a beer and a wine in front of me right now.
That's true, just like Michelangelo.
Yeah.
Right? And in Sex and the City terms, you're a...
Charlotte.
I can neither confirm nor deny that. I don't know my Sex in the City. But we have a podcast. It's called I Love This, You Should Too.
Is this it?
This is the one.
Oh!
How this works is, because I don't think I've given a description in a while.
No, I don't think anyone knows.
We take turns bringing movies to the other person, something that perhaps they wouldn't normally watch, something that they've never seen, but something that the other really loves. And in the last episode, I brought forward a movie called A League of Their Own. I'd been watching baseball movies for the last 2 months, and I thought that A League of Their Own was my favorite one. And you know what? It is. We watch it again. It really holds up for me. So, as the name of the podcast suggests, A League of Their Own. I loved this. Did you?
No, this is the worst movie I've ever seen.
You lied!
I do lie. It was awesome. I loved
so
it.
Good. Oh, you loved it. Like, loved it?
Loved it.
Isn't it so great?
It's such a sweet movie. I thank you for making me watch it.
It was surprising to me that you hadn't seen this in the past, because it seems like you do like to watch a lot of sports movies with female casts, and there's not many out there. And I would say this is the best one, so I was shocked that you hadn't seen it.
I love it.
It's so good.
Did I mention I love it?
Me too.
Aww.
Podcast over. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Oh, Samantha just slid our patented I Love This, You Should Too 3D printed box to...
Yup.
Verdict is yup.
So, after all this time, did it stand up for you?
It did. You know what? I know in this podcast, I'm all about like the gritty stuff, the art house stuff, independent films that you haven't heard of, foreign things. But I always say that, no, I do love a big Hollywood sentimental feel-good movie when it's done well. And I just don't think most are done well. This one is. It was done well. I loved it when I was like 8 when I saw it. I love it now. It's great. It's a very good movie.
I just want to be friends with all the characters.
Don't you?
Yeah.
So what jumped out to you upon your first viewing of this movie?
It seemed like a movie that you could make now about that time, right? Like, there's a lot of stereotypical things in it, like, oh, well, if we're gonna start a league of girls, they have to all be pretty, and we all have to, like, be able to, you know, sell them by their looks. And there's a lot of, like, men or like male dominant things in society at that time. And also it was really funny to see the pushback on the teeny tiny little uniforms.
Mm-hmm. And by that time, are you speaking of the 40s when it took place, or 92 when it was made?
In the 40s.
Right.
They did a really good job of making it because it's not too stereotypical where you're like rolling your eyes and you're like annoyed with the kind of how far they push the stereotypes, but it also seems like a very accurate representation of the time.
Right. There's so many movies that if they have a point they're driving home, and a good movie should, this one definitely does, they don't hit it over the head,
No.
though. It seems like it's an accurate representation of what happened, and rather than shouting at the viewer like, hey, women deserve better, they show you that they deserve better through the actions of these characters, these well-developed characters that really you grow to love very quickly.
You do, and I love how different they all are. It's not a whole bunch of Geena Davises. It's not a whole bunch of, like, Geena Davis with a whole bunch of, like, less attractive women. It's not like all or nothing. It's a lot of really amazing different looking women on this team.
And I think definitely all of these characters are the highlight of the movie. It's a great story and all that, but it would be so much less entertaining if we didn't have these great performances and these very specific, unique, funny characters. And they're so well, maybe not even well developed right off the bat, but you get a sense of who everyone is in the first scene you see everyone.
Exactly.
Like, let's start off with Dottie and her kid sister, Kit. Their sibling rivalry is right off the bat. You get to see them at home in Oregon, and they're playing in a dairy baseball game, because that's a thing that happens.
Dairy league.
And you can instantly figure out what their relationship is.
Yeah.
You know that Kit's the kid sister. You know that she's angry at Dottie. But Dottie doesn't have this kind of superiority thing.
No,
she wants what's best for Kit.
She is such a good person, and she legitimately would do anything for Kit, which I love. I think that the beauty of their relationship is that Kit is very much rebellious and really falls into that little sister role, and then towards the end of the movie realizes that the only thing that Dottie ever wanted for her was to be happy and to, you know, feel special and happy.
Definitely. Their relationship is, it's not that it's extremely unique for what you see in film, but it does seem different than the usual representations of this we get. You always have like a domineering older sibling and the young one who always wants to do better. But this has just a much sweeter, more subtle take on it, because in this case we have the older sister who actually does want the younger to do better, is always trying to do that, but doesn't go so far out of her way. She doesn't put on a show about it. She just lives her life in that way. And I feel like that's something that could be said about so much of this movie, that they don't tell you, look at this great thing we're doing. It's just that's how people go about their business. And we'll talk about that later, about how this movie does a really good job of showing women supporting women, but in a it's just a beautiful way. But
it's like a natural way.
Yes.
It's very natural. It isn't like women's suffrage. It's like very much like, this is just the way we are, and I just want to support my fellow female, and it's not like hitting you over the head with it, which is really nice. But we can talk about that later.
Let's talk about some of the other characters, because there's so many really good ones.
There are so many.
We can start right off at the beginning with like some little side ones, like John Lovitz. John Lovitz plays the scout.
I thought he was cute. Like,
cute? Okay.
Not like an attractiveness,
No.
but like it was a cute character, and I'm glad it wasn't in the whole movie.
I don't believe men and women are intrinsically different in their tastes, but there is one thing I've noticed. Women, for the most part, do not care for John Lovitz.
No.
Men do. I think John Lovitz is hilarious.
Really?
Yeah, he's so funny to me.
Oh, he's so skeevy, and like, and all of the characters he plays in it just rubs me the wrong way. I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, and that's why he's great. Whether or not he's gross, he's so funny in it, though. You must admit, you laughed a lot at him.
He was funny.
Yeah.
He was funny. Like I said, his character was very cute, but I feel like it could have been played by anybody.
No, I disagree with. Because John Lovitz is just playing John Lovitz. He plays the same character and everything, and yeah, he's not a great actor, but John Lovitz is funny, and I think that character was him. It was just him being him. I think Danny DeVito was in talks to play that, and I could see that character being played by DeVito, but it wouldn't be what Lovitz brought to it.
Okay, well, agree to disagree. John Lovitz is not my favorite actor.
Well, he's not an actor, really. He's a comedian that just plays himself in movies.
True, okay. Yeah, so it was definitely added to the story because you got to see where they came from. You got to see this big city guy making fun of where they came from. But you also got to see how, like, good and pure these two women are.
Do you like Kit as a person?
Yes. But I think that she definitely has some character flaws that she ends up kind of working out as she grows throughout the movie.
She seems like, I love Kit. I love the character. If I knew her, would I like her? Absolutely not.
No, you're right. That I would not. I don't think I'd want to hang out with somebody.
I wouldn't want her on my team.
She seems like a lot of work.
She is. And for a lot of the athletes out there, you probably know someone who makes a mistake, then goes on the bench like Kit does, and just goes like, oh, and starts hitting herself in the head. And you're like, I get it. Channel that into something better. But she is a lot of work. And she's not nice to people. Really?
No, she's not. But I feel like she gets a lot better towards the end of the movie.
I do think it's a very late switch.
Yes.
It's once she gets some success, because that's all she wants.
She wants success, and she wants out of her sister's shadow.
Yes.
And as soon as she gets that, she does change drastically.
Yes.
And becomes kind of a real human.
Yeah. And I love the fact that in this movie, you can have someone who is kind of the hero of the movie, who's also not that likable, but you get where she's coming from.
Yes.
While I wouldn't like to hang out with Kit, and I don't think she's like a great person, I think she's a good character because I understand why she is the way she is.
Absolutely. And I think that is why I don't mind her so much, is because she is someone who could be a real person in life, right?
Definitely.
We've watched some movies where people that you don't like, they're not actual, like, you rarely would actually see someone act a way that a character that we, like, strongly dislike would act, right?
Yeah, they're, like, cartoonish villains.
Exactly. Like last week in Dare Me, it was 2 weeks ago in Dare Me, that main character is definitely cartoonish and to the max on one side of like the personality spectrum, and so much so that you wouldn't actually meet someone very often in real life like that.
No, Beth was a straight up sociopath.
Yes.
While Kit is an annoying little sister.
Yes, and so you can imagine meeting someone like that, and I think that gave me, I feel like it allowed me to be a little bit more lenient on her character, even though I didn't like most of the stuff that she did at the beginning of the movie.
Definitely. Like, I love that she's in this movie, and Lori Petty did a great job. She was one of the best athletes, too. You can tell Lori Petty knows what she is doing.
Absolutely.
Just a little divergence while we continue to the characters. I've watched a lot of baseball movies in the last while. The baseball players in this... 50. Go watch the last or go listen to the last episode and you can hear my take on all of them.
Oh, interesting. I didn't notice that at all.
But the baseball players in this, they were so good. And Penny Marshall made a point of saying, you need to be able to play baseball first, and then you can audition.
Ah.
And everyone in this did a great job. Of course, some people were hidden a little bit. They didn't show Madonna doing too much because she probably wasn't
She's
as
Madonna,
good
yeah.
at it, but they showed her sliding a lot. Geena Davis was the only one who didn't go through a full 3-month baseball camp with everyone.
Training camp.
Because she was brought in at the last minute. It was Deborah Winger was going to play the role. She dropped out 2 weeks before filming started. So Geena Davis just jumped in and I think did a great job because she doesn't seem out of place at all. She seems like one of the better athletes, actually. Rosie O'Donnell looks pretty good, too, actually. She looks like she can play baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. I would not have guessed that Geena Davis didn't go to baseball camp with everybody else.
Yeah, she's just that good at everything.
Everything.
We should just do a podcast about how good Geena Davis is.
The I Love Geena Davis podcast?
Because I told you about, like, Mensa and the archery. She also has a film festival that promotes diversity in film. She has, I think, an institute, the Geena Davis Institute for Diversity in Film or something like that.
Where's her film festival? Can we go?
I don't know. One good thing I know about it is that if you get into the festival, she guarantees you distribution, which is if you don't know how it works out there, lots of people put films in festivals, you see it once, and then it's gone away.
Right.
Like movies that I make. That's what
and
happens to them.
then people buy them from the festivals, right? Like
Possibly.
You go to Cannes or like
Possibly.
Venice or wherever.
Some get purchased that way. But smaller ones, you get seen that time, and that's your moment.
Huh.
This includes distribution. So in some form or another, people are going to be able to see your movie after this.
Wow.
And it's all about promoting. It started off with gender equity in movies and trying to get more women on screen, more female directors. But now it's kind of branched out to be also about ethnicities and all sorts of things. So Geena Davis is pretty much the best.
I want to be her friend.
I was going to say I want to be her too, but you said friend.
I mean, I want to be Geena Davis.
Yeah, me too.
But I also want someone like Geena Davis just in my life. Like in this movie, the entire time I was just like, man, I want a best friend like that.
Yeah.
Like, she was so amazing, very talented, but never outshone anyone else. Even when she was being sold by the league as, like, the Queen of Diamonds.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, the Queen of Diamonds. So it's like, she was so amazing. She was so amazing to her teammates. They all became such good friends. And even when the league was like, look at this tall, beautiful woman who is amazing at everything.
She's like 11 feet tall or something.
Yeah.
She looks so tall and
even
statuesque.
then, she was still just like, well, this is the one you want to talk to because she made that save. Like, she's just like such a good person, and I just want her in my life.
And the performance as Dottie, it almost can get overlooked. She is the lead for sure, but she has so much less funny business or a strong character than like Madonna and Rosie and everyone like that. But the more I watch it, the more I can appreciate it. When she does get those lines, they are like straight lines.
Yeah.
But she delivers them so well. And I think the restraint she delivers this performance with is what makes everyone else look that much better. Because she's not out there trying to steal the show. Both Dottie and Geena Davis as the actor. Both of them are very understated and doing their jobs and letting other people shine where they can,
And
but
just
also carrying
yeah.
the movie, but slowly, subtly, just being a workhorse. Both Dottie and Geena Davis are kind of the same in that.
And they kind of shine in their own way, but you can tell that they're letting Rosie O'Donnell and Madonna and like all of the people in this cast that you know, like Tom Hanks and everybody, like, they're letting them shine. And like, I think that was such an amazing choice and such an amazing, like, you have to be a very talented actor to be able to pull that off.
Yeah, to be kind of a almost stoic character, but not be boring.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and she does it very well. Who's another character that you loved in this movie?
Well, I love the Madonna-Rosie O'Donnell combination of...
That's the thing. Both of them are good on their own, but together they're just amazing and hilarious.
So I like them as a parallel to Dottie and Kit, because Dottie and Kit are like wholesome farm girls. Dottie is very beautiful. She's talented. She's so nice. And Kit is like, she's talented at what she's talented at. She's not as beautiful as her sister, and she has a big complex. Whereas Rosie O'Donnell and Madonna, I cannot remember their names.
Doris and May.
Doris and May. All the way May. That's right. So Doris and May are very much like May is out there and she's wild and crazy, and she knows she's good looking, and she knows that she's talented, and she knows that she's like one of the best people on the, like one of the best things on the team for publicity and that kind of thing. And then Doris is like funny, and she knows she's funny, and she knows that she's talented at baseball, and she knows that she is like really good with May. And so they're almost like opposite to Dottie and Kit, and it's fun to see them kind of interact and be like opposite twosome.
Yeah, there is such a perfect almost foil for the other pair. Mm-hmm. While Dottie and Kit share so much history, and really when you get down to it, are very similar people in a lot of ways, but can't recognize that in each other, or definitely Kit can't. On the other hand, May and Doris are so opposed to how they present themselves, how they're seen by others most of all, but they don't envy or have any sort of jealousy about this. Rather, they support and celebrate the other person.
Yep.
Like when Doris is giving her interview about her skills, she goes, oh, you know, the best player on the team, the best player is May. And she brings May over there. And I love that they met because May was like a stripper at Doris's dad's bar or club or whatever it is. And Doris was the bouncer.
Yeah. Exactly.
Normally you would see this done and one of them is going to be shamed about this. Yeah. Like either Doris, oh, you're too butch, you're the bouncer, or, oh, May, you're just dancing and showing everyone everything. So one of them is going to be shamed, but neither is in this movie. Both are celebrated for what they do, and that's fucking beautiful. I love it. That was
the beauty of this movie, was there was no shame. Everyone was so different, and nobody was shamed for being different.
They were celebrated.
There was a moment where John Lovitz was kind of like, oh, we can't take her.
John Lovitz can, because you don't identify with John Lovitz. He's kind of a villain character. He's funny. He kind of
comes up as like the common people, right? Like the common ideal of what women should look like during wartime, and women who are going to play baseball need to be beautiful so that people come and watch. And he is kind of like a crowdsource character of what, like, I'm sure the ideals in the States were during that time.
And I think all the men are to an extent, but the reason John Lovitz seems so much worse is that he doesn't follow the story through. Because even Jimmy Dugan, played by Tom Hanks, starts off saying, like, girls can't play baseball. Yeah. But all of the other characters get won over once they see what's going on.
Exactly.
John Lovitz isn't there for the rest, so you don't get to see him being won over. But the character who is, I forget his name now, Lowenstein? Ira? Something like that. But he's the one that is following the team along and starts off with, if you don't want to wear this, there's 30 girls who will play in a swimsuit if I tell them to.
The manager of the league.
Yeah, he's kind of the second in command. Right. And by the end, he's the one that's advocating.
That's fighting for
this is a product. You don't know what these women are sacrificing to play for. And so he's the one that's followed it and changes along with it, as is the case with Jimmy Dugan. Absolutely. So all of the male characters are kind of those outsiders who start off with like some sort of preconceived notion, whether that this is just a stunt, whether they're not real players, or that it's just second rate. They have some sort of preconceived notion, and they are changed not just automatically, but it takes the course of a whole season, or at least these 2 hours that we see the movie, for them to come to those realizations. Yeah. And that's a good, nice little touch.
I felt like one thing that speech from Ira, I think his name is Ira, one thing that reminded me of was something in The Devil Wears Prada, where Andy gets the job that a million girls would die for. And that's a very common thing in sports, when like looks are a thing. So like in cheerleading and being like a sideline cheerleader for football, that's something that you hear a lot, is that like, well, if you're not willing to put in the work and change yourself and force yourself into this mold, there's 50 other girls out there who we can bring in and who are willing to do absolutely whatever they want to, like, whatever we want them to do to be that ideal. And I think that that is slowly changing in sports, but I think that that is something that is still so common.
Yeah, because in so many of these leagues, there are so many people who want this job, and ownership or management doesn't feel like they owe players anything.
No.
Players are treated like commodities.
You do what we want, you show up in what we want you to wear, and you do your job, or else we're going to replace you with the 70,000 other people who want to be a pro whatever.
And David Strathairn does play Ira Lowenstein.
Ira Lowenstein.
We did have the name right.
That's right.
I'm glad it is, because that name, if I had guessed it wrong, it would sound very racist. Like,
extremely.
You just say Lowenstein for any Jewish character,
and
but it
Ira.
actually was. Yeah.
Those two names together, you're like, well, I'm assuming he's a Jewish person. So.
Yeah, so I'm glad I got that one right. What about Tom Hanks as Jimmy Dugan?
I loved his character arc, like overall, like stepping back and looking at how he kind of grows throughout the movie is really awesome, but also he's a little unbelievable because they're on the bus and he's drunk and he's drinking, and then all of a sudden, Dottie offers him a Coke, and now he doesn't drink anymore?
I feel like that was just a symbolic first step.
Oh, okay.
I think that kind of goes along with he's at that point started to take over and actually be a manager and just take some pride not only in this team but in himself,
right.
Something that he had lost, because I kind of take it as that he's pretty much the character of Jimmy Fox, who was a great baseball player and did, in fact, lose the last third of his career to alcoholism. So I don't think that Coke necessarily means that he's going to stop drinking, but I think that was just
symbolism.
Yeah, or a first step at least. I think what his character arc actually is his involvement with the team. Right. How it went from being just an over-the-top grosso's a word, right?
Yeah,
just spitting everywhere, peeing, and being the worst, to just taking an interest in the game, realizing that this is actual baseball and that his career isn't over, it's changed. He was so full of self-pity that he just didn't care about anything else. And he's probably has one of the more over-the-top portrayals for sure.
Absolutely.
He's ridiculous at the beginning.
He's ridiculous at
the
beginning.
But it's fun.
So I loved him once he became a coach. It reminded me a lot because he's frustrated by his team. He really cares. He wants to like help them in the way that they know. So he sees that they go to church, so they do a prayer, or like, and he's clearly not like a practicing Catholic at that point, because he says we're gonna have all the balls or something. Like, it's just really funny, something you'd never probably say in a prayer. But I identified with him a lot as a coach, because I'm like, we all have this,
because you also show up drunk to practice all the time.
No, please don't ever say that again. No, but like, we all have those moments where we're so frustrated with our athletes and we care so much, and there's just like that heart behind it when he actually smartens up and realizes that this is actually something that he can do that is productive.
I think the perfect example of that was, you have of course, the iconic scene, the "there's no crying in baseball" scene, where he yells at her, and that scene is so funny. Of course, that line is great, but I love when the umpire comes over and he's like, "She's crying, sir." Like, he's like telling the umpire, like, "Help me out here." And he eventually gets thrown out for telling the ump that he looks like a penis with a little hat on.
Right.
And all of the players cheer that he's thrown out. And it's because, I forget the character's name, but it's Stillwell's mom. She can't hit the cutoff man. She always throws wide. And in the finals, she does it again. And there's that scene with Tom Hanks, and he just stares at her, and he's shaking.
Yeah.
And he's trying to get out the words. And eventually all he says is like,
work
in
on
the
it for
off
next
season, I
year."
need to work on that. And she's like, oh, okay. That's the progress
That
of
is-
Jimmy, more so than him having the coke. I think they needed to put that in there to kind of like say like, hey, he's not an alcoholic anymore, so it's fine, right? But his interactions with the team is really his journey.
Mm-hmm. That is such a Coach moment too. Just like generically that like I can't yell at this person anymore because it's not working. So clearly I need to like just swallow it back and say something constructive, even though that is the last thing I want to do.
Oh, that's a coach moment. That's a teacher moment. That's a parent moment.
It's an athlete moment.
Everyone's had that where you just take a look at them. I've directed plays and movies where I did that too.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that is such a human moment. And I love Tom Hanks's character because he is so human in so many ways throughout this movie, and he really has like a human growth story, and I love all of those moments where he like really shines as an actor.
And this came at a really interesting point for Tom Hanks, because now we know him as like America's dad. He's just the actor. He's a wholesome guy.
Yeah. And
he's successful. Whatever he does is going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
He had come off like a couple of bombs at this point. This
really?
was like not too far after like Joe versus the Volcano, which I actually kind of probably liked. But
I don't know that movie.
It's weird. He thinks he has a brain cloud, so he goes to sacrifice himself to a volcano. Meg Ryan's in it. He lives on a raft made of suitcases.
Oh.
But anyways, he wasn't just an automatic box office success at this point. And this movie was like a real turning point for him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. I don't know a lot about early Tom Hanks.
I guess nowadays that is early Tom Hanks. I think that is middle Tom Hanks.
Because I think he was very young when he started acting, right?
I think of like Family Ties and Bosom Buddies as early Tom Hanks.
Was he like a teenager in those?
No. He's just been... So
he's just aged really
Here's a
well.
little side note. There was a show where Tom Hanks and his friend pretend to be women to live in an apartment building, but then they also come in and be their male versions who they say are like cousins of their female versions, so they can hit on the girls. That was a TV show that existed.
That is
it's called Bosom Buddies because
for
they have
another
bosoms.
time. That sounds like it's from another time.
Yeah.
I am interested to see an episode of that. But
was he in a Dungeons and Dragons movie? That can't be real, right?
I have no idea.
There's no way Tom Hanks could ever have been in a really bad Dungeons and Dragons movie, right? I seem to remember that was a thing. Someone out there is going to be like, yeah, I saw it. It was the worst.
I don't know.
Mazes and Monsters, 1982.
Wow. I didn't realize Dungeons and Dragons has like been multi-generational.
Oh, yeah. It was, I think it peaked in the 80s, didn't it? I don't know.
I guess that's why it's in Stranger Things.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I remember I worked at like a collectibles shop and people would come in and go like, oh, do you have any Dungeons and Dragons stuff? And I'd be like, oh, sorry, we don't, but you might want to check 1986.
Is that what you said?
Snap, son.
No, I cannot imagine you doing that.
I did, in fact, say like you might want to check 1986 though.
I don't know why I thought that it was like new.
Dungeons and Dragons?
Like we have friends who play it.
Do we?
We do.
Who?
Like...
Well, we don't need to get into that. I don't know anyone who plays it.
Yeah, you do.
I didn't know that about them, and I'm going to reevaluate my friendship. I kid. It's fun. Imagination. Dungeons. Whatever.
7-hour quests. But yeah, no, I totally thought it was newer than it actually is.
I always associated it with being an 80s thing.
Oh, see, I didn't, even though I've seen Stranger Things and I know that it's in that, so...
Well, let's go back to the early 90s, at least, or the 40s. What about the relationship between Dottie and Jimmy?
I really liked their relationship because in this kind of movie, or like in movies that are kind of comedies, there's always like a love interest.
Yes.
And I think that they did such a good job of respecting boundaries because Dottie is married right from the beginning of the movie. And so you know that. And Dottie and Jimmy have this like relationship that is so pure and like friendly. And like there is no ounce of like Jimmy wanting Dottie.
Absolutely. If there had been a romantic story in this movie, it would have ruined so much.
Exactly.
Because the relationships that this movie is based on and where it shines are the relationships between the other women, specifically the sisters, but still amongst the team. And there's kind of a mentor-mentee thing with Jimmy a little bit, but it's less that and more just like a mutual respect.
Exactly. I was going to say there's such a strong story of respect here because Dottie coaches the team until Jimmy sobers up and figures out what's going on. And she does such a good job. And there's that scene where they're doing all the nose signals and like the...
the signals, yeah.
I don't know what to... It's just signals.
They're telling Marla whether or not to swing away or bunt.
Right. Okay, so you see them doing all these signals and they're doing clearly like not, I know nothing about baseball. So clearly not knowing these signals, you can clearly see that they're doing different things and Marla's getting confused and like isn't quite sure who to listen to. And this is like the start where Jimmy really starts to care because he is all of a sudden very invested in what Marla's going to do at the plate to win the game or not win the game. And it's very awesome to see that he actually respects what Dottie is saying. And then at the like later in the movie, he starts to kind of call on her as almost like an assistant coach, which is really nice because he acknowledges that she has knowledge.
Yeah, at the beginning, it's Dottie's pressure that turns Jimmy. And it's Jimmy's respect that brings Dottie back in for that final game. Do you want to hear something terrible?
Yes.
So they did shoot a scene where Dottie and Jimmy kiss.
What?
Yeah.
That would have ruined the movie.
And they tested it, and everyone's like, that ruins the movie, and they cut it. And they were right to cut it.
Good.
I would have been, if this was the exact same movie
so angry
with that scene, I'd be like, this is such a great movie, except for...
the love story. Yeah.
Dottie wouldn't do that.
That's part of this time, right? Like, everyone's husband was not in the picture. They were away fighting a war. So they're women who are free-ish, right? Like, they're allowed to kind of do what they want because they don't have, you know, the pressures of having children and, you know, raising their family and being in the home, which is kind of what happened during, like, before the war, was that was very much the American ideal. It was really neat to see these women kind of flourish on their own, but there was always this looming presence of the husbands, which was really nice to see that they respected that.
Yeah, the relationship Dottie has with her husband, it never felt to me like she was someone who was oppressed in a way. Like, of course, there's the societal stuff, but this movie, I think I saw when I was like 8, but I had ideas of what feminism was as an 8-year-old. And I thought at the time is just that, like, yeah, women don't have to cook and clean. They should be out working.
Yeah.
This movie brought me to the next level. That I could realize that there is a woman who chooses to stay home and take care of the home. And if that's her choice, that's just as legitimate. And as a little kid, this was a real... Geena Davis did a lot for me as a little kid.
Apparently.
She, it's hard to overstate. Between, like, watching Thelma and Louise, which I shouldn't do as a little kid, but either way, I learned so much from that. She was in Beetlejuice, which I loved, and this. It did a lot for me. And I guess we were talking about her relationship with Jimmy. It would diminish her character if that happened, because that's not who she is.
Exactly.
It seems so out of character. It also seems out of character for Jimmy, who's built this respect for this woman, for this baseball player.
Exactly.
It seems like he doesn't even regard them as male or female.
No.
He regards them as ball players. Yeah. And that's kind of been his journey. So that scene of them kissing would have just ruined so many different things.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad that they didn't include that now that I know about it, because I think that it absolutely would have changed my view on this movie. It's not necessary. She gets her husband back, and they do a really good job during the movie of kind of driving home the fact that this is a war. When I can't remember whose husband it is, but
the one who can't read? No, wait.
No, that's not.
No, it's Betty Spaghetti's husband dies.
Betty.
Yeah.
Okay, so when Betty gets the letter, you really feel how, like, flip of the coin, or like, I don't know, edge of the knife. Is that a saying?
Sure, just there's this presence looming
Constantly.
over everyone.
And they do such a good job of kind of keeping it at bay until there's a moment where that telegram could have been for anybody in that room. And it was just so tense, and everyone was so emotional because it brought it all to the surface of this thing, because they're like, my husband is at war, he could die any minute. And they are trying to do this great thing, playing baseball and having a life and doing all this wonderful stuff and having friends. And so you push all that stuff back, and it was such a great representation of just how tumultuous the women's life in the 1940s was during the war, because it was so back and forth at any given moment.
Yeah, I like how much it was brought up in it, because it's not a movie just about women fearing for their husbands' lives. It's the story of their baseball team. But we do get these little pop-ups of this is always looming over them. The world is changed. Everything is different because of this, and it can pop up at any time without any sort of reasoning to the story, and that's just what happens.
And I really like the scene where Dottie is sitting in her room crying, because I feel like it brought it all to the surface and it made it all really real again. And then her husband walks in, and it's a very nice moment, but you really see that these women are like 3 seconds away from like the worst moment of their lives at all times. And you really appreciate just how much stress they were under, not just playing in the World Series or wherever they were playing. They were also under so much stress because their lives could change in an instant. So, Indy, what are your favorite moments from this movie? Because I know that you brought this forward, you love it. So tell me some of the things that you loved.
I feel like we talked about so many of them because they're character based, but there's all these other fun little bits. Remember that newsreel about she's not just a great second baseman, she pours a mean cup of coffee.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was
all
so
of
funny.
The like newsreel items, yeah.
And then they have Marla off in the distance. And how about that Marla? And she's just way out there.
Yeah, that was funny.
Like it follows a normal 5-act structure, but if you were to divide it into thirds, the first third is just so funny. It's just joke, and they're coming at you so fast with them meeting everybody, the charm school, the tryouts. It's so good. The second third kind of gets into them becoming a team, and then the final third deals with kind of the relationship between Kit and Dottie and the more serious stuff. But that first third of the movie, it's so much funnier than I remembered.
Yeah.
There's so many jokes in it that are hilarious.
It was such a heartwarming movie, but it was also so funny. And I felt so good after watching it.
Yeah.
It's like truly a feel-good movie. And I think that's one of those movies that kind of stick with you.
And it's so rewatchable. I've seen this movie so many times. It's probably in my top 10 for movies I've seen the most often. Because a lot of my favorite movies you can't watch that often. Like, you shouldn't be watching Taxi Driver more than once every 5 years, because you'll go crazy.
I'm going to question your mental health if you start doing that.
But A League of Their Own, like I was saying last time, I watched it twice on a flight to Tokyo before, and it holds up.
It's so nice. And it's like, I love the backstory. I know you said that there's some backstory that could have been cut just to shorten the movie.
Yeah, the framing story. You know what? I changed my mind.
I really like the framing story because it's such a nice ending that it does have to be in the beginning, because you don't know what's going on if you don't see the beginning part.
I think the only thing they could have done, maybe you could shorten it at the beginning, perhaps.
Yeah.
That's about it, though. I did think that the framing story dragged. This time I watched it, though, and I was like, you know what? I don't think so. Like, at the beginning, it seems like there's not much you gain from that, but when you have the context of what you see later, because Dottie's telling her grandkids, she's telling the older one to let the younger one have a chance, and then she tells the younger one, kill him.
Yeah.
And once you know the relationship that she had with her little sister, it makes so much more sense.
Absolutely. And that's kind of her life lesson that she learned, was let your younger sibling have a chance. And that's kind of what she lived by. So it's so nice to see that reflected in that beginning story, and then also I cried when they were all at the museum
At the end?
at the Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
that was
God, yeah.
That was like, oh, and then hearing them sing, and I was just like, yeah, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, or when Stillwell said his mom died.
Yes, that's when I started.
Yeah.
That was...
Or when Jimmy's sign is up there and then he had passed away just a year earlier. Yeah, the ending makes you cry. I feel like we are definitely not in the minority for crying at the end of that.
I'm so glad, because, oh my God. But it wasn't like a bad cry. It wasn't like heartbreak cry. It was like, that was such a wonderful movie and I love it so much, and like I just want everyone to be happy and safe. Like,
and that all of these people are kind of getting some recognition that they hadn't had at this point. Apparently still to this day at Cooperstown, that's one of the most requested, like, oh, where is the section on this?
Oh, that's
about
so
the women in
great,
baseball.
because this is based on a true story.
Yeah, so this league did exist for 12 years. So
12 years?
Yeah, it lasted twice as long as the Confederacy, so people still have Confederate flags. I want a Rockford Peaches flag.
I'll work on it.
Actually, I totally do want a Rockford Peaches hat, and I said that I do want to dress as them for Halloween, and then I called Dottie, and you got angry at me.
I want to be Dottie.
I want to be Dottie.
I want to be Dottie.
Okay, fine, I'll be Ellen Sue. Sue Ellen? Ellen Sue. I like Ellen Sue.
You don't want to be All the Way May?
Oh, actually, yeah, maybe. And I don't like Madonna. She's a bad actor, but she's so good in this.
She's so likable. She's so comfortable in that role.
She's so fun and lively. And each one of these characters, especially when you look at the kind of main four players, they each bring something so different to it. And it rounds out a really full team. It
does. And I feel like Madonna is just being Madonna in this movie.
Perhaps. No, because I don't think she's a likable person in real life. And she was quite likable in this. Another little fun thing is that they would always have all these unpaid extras to be in the stands.
Yeah.
And if you've ever worked on a movie or been in one in any way, it takes hours and hours of just like sitting around. So there's all these people in the stands. So people would come out and kind of entertain them. Tom Hanks would do puppet shows. Rosie O'Donnell did stand-up. Madonna refused to talk to anyone.
Of course she did.
They're like, will you sing a song? And she said, nope, fuck you. So then Rosie started singing Madonna songs, like as a joke. And Madonna said, never do that again. And then you know what Rosie did? Sang another one.
Yes! That's my favorite.
Madonna went out of her way to like talk about, I can't remember what town in Indiana it was filmed in, but to say like, oh, this town's the worst. They're terrible people. And yeah, it's just Madonna being Madonna. Huh. But either way, let's not talk about that because this movie was so fun and joyous. What about the casting of all the older versions of them? Wasn't it amazing?
So good.
How?
There was only a couple of them that I didn't recognize.
You can tell exactly who it is.
But it's like 90% of them you can tell exactly who it is.
It was remarkable. When I was a kid, I assumed it was old age makeup.
That's exactly what I was thinking while we were watching. I'm like, is this just Geena Davis and like her sister, like old aged?
No, there are different actors. Laurie Petty, who's Kit, and Geena Davis did dub the voices.
Oh, okay.
So that adds to it a bit.
But it was the mannerisms.
Yeah.
It was the mannerisms and the way that they like said words and like moved while they were like acting. It was so incredible. I totally thought that at least the lead two were just old aged.
And even Doris, Rosie O'Donnell, and May, Madonna.
Yeah.
Rosie O'Donnell, I said.
Rosie O'Donnell?
Rosie O'Donnell. The two of them, too, a bit further away, but still, you could instantly tell who it was.
It's the mannerisms. Like, those were some incredible older actors.
And Sue Ellen, that one, I'd have to look into it, but it really seems like it's just the same person in old age makeup.
Absolutely.
And it didn't even seem like great old age makeup. It seems like, no, that's just her, right?
Yeah, just with some gray hair and like a sweatshirt.
A lot of the other people, the non-speaking people who were playing baseball in the end of the framing story and over the credits are the actual players.
Really?
Because in 88, when they opened this Hall of Fame thing, that was a real thing that happened in 1988. Yes. So those were real players from the league.
That's just like video of them playing?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. The song that they sing, that was a real song that was written by that person or the person that they're based on. For the most part, it's a true story.
Wow.
Yeah. They did a TV show based on it the year after. It did not do well. I think they made 6 episodes, 2 aired. But what I learned just yesterday is they're making a TV show right now.
Based on this?
A League of Their Own. It's going to be an Amazon original. It has one of the women from Broad City and I think the woman who plays Janet in The Good Place.
Oh
I
my
think
God.
are the 2 leads.
Yes.
And I don't...
Is Janet playing Geena Davis?
I don't think it's the actual same characters, but I think it's just of...
Based.
Yeah, it's still going to be called A League of Their Own. It's still the Rockford Peaches, which... Because those are... that was the real team name.
Yeah.
But it might be different characters. But we'll see. We'll see when it comes out.
Huh. I'm excited for that all of a sudden, because I love Janet.
I love her, but I'm not excited when something that I love gets remade.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm hesitant. I'll watch it. I'll definitely watch it. In that ridiculously long episode I did about the 50 baseball movies I watched, although I did trim it down by 50% because it was 2 hours and I got it down to 1.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. I talked about how almost all baseball movies fall in one of like 5 or 6 categories. Mm-hmm. And I think the brilliance of A League of Their Own is that it takes from all of them and makes like one super movie.
Right.
There are so many of the baseball movies that have some sort of childhood wish fulfillment, that a kid amazingly gets to the major leagues or something. And we have a bit of that because Kit is almost that person.
Yes.
She wants a life outside of the farm. She wants to play baseball. And then when you see her finally walk through those doors and see the big stadium in front of her, you get that part too. You get this childlike character who's living out her dreams.
Yes.
Kind of like you do in Rookie of the Year and Little Big League, things like that. You also have the idea of the natural or the phenom. There's so many movies where there's one player, like in The Scout or in The Natural or The Phenom, actually they were just called that, where there's one player that has kind of amazing abilities and is so much better than everyone, and you follow their story. And then we get that with Geena Davis because she doesn't have the drive in a lot of ways like the other characters do. She doesn't want it like Kit does.
Right.
It's not to say that she's disinterested, but it means less to her.
Yeah.
But she has these natural abilities that make her the best, and she knows it. And so we get that story through her as well. And then so many of them, and sports movies in general, are always they often try to be a reflection of America at the time, and that's really apparent in this one.
Yeah.
Just like all the movies about Jackie Robinson talk about the civil rights movement, this one shows this very new aspect of American culture because women in the workforce just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And to have that ushered in such a fun way to show the excitement of that, but also what's holding them back.
Yeah.
In this movie, it comes through really well, so it does that as well.
I love that because you really see Dottie struggling with that because she says, oh no, I'm not going to come back and play. I'm just going to go home with my husband because he's home from the war now. And then she ends up coming back and playing in the playoffs or in the World Series. But she's struggling very much with do I just settle down and have kids now?
Yeah, I'll get back to what I was saying in a bit, but one thing that did kind of bother me is, so she chose family, and that's a legitimate choice. That's what she wanted. But then at the end, she's at the Hall of Fame alone, and Kit comes up with her whole family supporting her.
Yeah.
And it made me kind of sad for Dottie that she was the one that chose family, and it seems like she's the one that's alone.
Yeah. Well, you see her daughter at the beginning.
Yeah, but her daughter's kind of a dick to her.
Very much so.
Like, oh, we just need you out of the room.
And like the 2 kids downstairs don't really seem to care about their grandma. Like, yeah.
She's going to the Hall of Fame. That's fucking huge.
If you were in the Hall of Fame, I'd bring my whole family.
Thank you. Me too. But so
we have like 80 people between us.
That was the one thing where, like, I loved the aspect of the movie showing that Dottie chooses family, and that's just as legitimate of a choice as Kit saying, I'm going to choose to play baseball because that's what's there for me.
And I'm going to get a job here and I'm going to live here.
But then at the end, I would have loved to have seen Kit being the one of like, yeah, maybe she doesn't have the family, but she like traveled the world, she played baseball, she lived her dream. And then Dottie would be the one that has her family with her because those are the things that were important to them. But Dottie's alone, and I wonder like if that's just an unintentional thing for how the plot works, or if that's saying like, well, yeah, she chose family over this, and that was the wrong choice.
Oh, that doesn't
and
make
that
me
makes
feel
me
good.
Yeah, exactly,
that
right?
makes me feel bad about this movie then.
Yeah, I just wish Dottie had people there with her like everyone else did, or like Kit did. All right, well, the other things that I think so many baseball movies have is there's so many of them that are nostalgic. Baseball has a lot of more nostalgia to its movies, and this one definitely has that because it's in the 40s. We get to see all the period stuff, all the costuming. Costuming was so good in this movie.
So good. And not over the top.
Yeah, it seems if you look at pictures of the team, I think it's just absolutely accurate of what they were. And then the last, maybe my favorite type of baseball movie is the ragtag bunch that bands together and then they're successful. And this is definitely one of those too, because you have people coming from all walks of life. None of them are just like baseball players, but they all manage to find the best in each other, to contribute what they can to the team, and then they make this really successful team. And on top of that, you also have the level of just that they're women and they don't have a lot of other options because of how the world is working.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie takes from like those 6 really good baseball movie devices and combines them all into one, I dare say, the best baseball movie of all time.
I haven't seen 50 baseball movies, but I agree in your ratings.
Sugar might be like a better movie in some ways, but this is more baseball than the other ones that were better, perhaps films in a lot of ways. You know what? It's the best baseball movie.
I agree.
Well, I think we're getting to the end of it. Let's talk about the ending. Not the ending in the framing story, but it's Game 7, World Series. This we get to see in so many baseball movies, and it's almost always done in the exact same way. It's pitcher versus hitter. The hitter hits one foul ball really far one way, then they hit it the other way, and then finally they're going to hit the home run or they're going to strike out, depending on who we're following through the movie.
Whoever the hero is.
This one, very different. So you have a catcher and a pitcher, but also, who are we cheering for?
Nobody. I mean, the Peaches, because we've been following them the whole movie, but also we love Kit at this point in the movie.
Do we?
I did.
I don't know that I did.
I mean, I love Dottie a little bit more, but I still wanted Kit, like, to be successful and to feel validated.
Yes, that's what I wanted, but also I feel like a lot of my cheering for Kit was because that's what Dottie wants too. Dottie wants Kit to be successful.
Yes.
There's one big debate. When Kit runs over Dottie, Dottie drops the ball. Kit wins the game for the Racine Bells. Did Dottie drop the ball on purpose?
I think so.
You think so? Why?
So I think it could be either way, honestly.
Well, of course, but...
I think that she dropped the ball so that her sister could have that moment, because I feel like their feud would have just kept going on had Dottie won the World Series. I also think that she hits the ground in such a way that, yeah, a ball probably would fly out of your hand because you can really see it, like, just leave her fingers in such a way that she's clearly just lost control of holding onto the ball. So I don't know. I would really like it to be that she's just letting it go and, you know.
You'd prefer if Dottie did it on purpose?
Yeah, because...
But then Dottie's letting down her team.
But I think she loves her sister more than she loves her team.
That's very true. But then also that would make Dottie seem like an asshole because Dottie comes back for Game 7. She hasn't played the previous 6 games. She comes in, gets a spot right away, and then throws the game. That's not a story for a person like Dottie.
I mean, I also like the story of them just playing a good game of baseball, and that's how it washed out, right? Like,
for many years, I always thought that Dottie dropped the ball on purpose to give her sister this victory because she cares more about her sister than even herself. I don't think I think that anymore. Okay. Because right before that, she does go to Ellen Sue and say, like, you got to throw her the high heat. She can't lay off him. She can't hit him. So she's giving Ellen Sue tips on how to get her out.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like she is doing her best. And I think what sums it up best is at the end, when Kit's almost apologizing, Dottie says, "You wanted it more than me."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think Dottie is, of course, a better player.
Yeah.
She's the best player.
Yeah.
But Kit does want it more.
Yeah.
Dottie doesn't really want this life.
No.
She's great at it, but it's not, she doesn't have the passion that Kit has.
Absolutely.
And when you see Kit running down the third base line, she wants it so much.
Yeah.
You never really get that from Dottie.
No.
Although it's a character I love, that's not her love. Her love isn't baseball.
Right.
So I think Kit just wanted it more.
Yeah. I think Dottie just wanted to do something with your sister.
Yeah. Yeah, well, she, right at the beginning, only joins the league because Kit wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
She's very self-sacrificing in a lot of ways. And at the end, what I really loved was Dottie was so proud.
Mm-hmm.
She was so proud of Kit, and
Yeah.
that was really amazing. And finally, because Kit had this success over Dottie specifically, that she's able to love her as a sister and not be just thinking about all the negative things of how I'm not as beautiful, I'm not as good at baseball, nobody likes me as much.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of gets over that because she has this one victory, because she hadn't had that her whole life.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's such a well-rounded story.
Because I guess in the end, Kit's the hero, like, of that game.
Yes.
But it was never her story.
No.
Whose story is it? Who's the hero? Because in all of these movies, I've been watching so many, they all follow a very similar trajectory. And you follow one person, and then either they win or they lose, but they're the hero. In this one, we're mostly with Dottie. When Kit interacts with Dottie, it's usually from Dottie's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
We see Kit enter the scene when she yells at Dottie, and then she leaves, and we stay with Dottie. We don't follow Kit. And it could have been a very easy choice to follow Kit, to see Kit being told that she's being traded, so we can sympathize or empathize with her more. But we never really get that. So whose story is this? Who's the hero?
The All-American Professional Girls Baseball League? I don't know. I feel like it's such a like group hero thing. Is that a thing?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly how I feel too. If I may soliloquize. Do you soliloquize? Soliloquy. What is the...
Present a soliloquy?
Yeah.
Summarize.
Or give my thesis on this movie, perhaps.
Give me your thesis.
I think more than it's a story of Dottie or even Dottie and Kit, it's a story about sisterhood. Of course, the one that we see the most is between Dottie and Kit, because they're the literal sisters of it. But this movie is about the sisterhood of these players coming together to do something that had never been done before.
Mm-hmm.
And the sisterhood that you can find from athletics, and we get that in some movies as well. Like Bang the Drum Slowly has this kind of fraternal love between all these men. But this one is able to kind of present that in so much of a more all-encompassing way, because this is the first time that women had been able to do this. Because all of these women are being pioneers and breaking ground together.
Mm-hmm.
And like what we were talking about before, this acceptance that they all have of each other. It seems like an extension of this sisterhood and the ideals of athletics and sport. Because we get all these sports movies, and I always tell people that even if you don't like sports, there are good sports movies, because at their best, they're a microcosm of the human condition, of a specific thing that they're talking about.
Or a specific time, like this one.
Yeah. And I think this one is, like, without being too grandiose about it, it's about women.
Yeah.
And it's about women supporting each other. And I love how in this movie they don't have to draw attention to it. It's not like in the Avengers movie where all the women pose together and like, hey, we're women, and the music rises and everything like that.
Yeah.
In this movie, it's just what they do. This is how they live their lives. Like early on in the movie, it's set up when John Lovitz's character doesn't want to take Marla because of how she looks. Mm-hmm. And the first thing both Dottie and Kit do is they just sit down. Mm-hmm. And they say, we're not going anywhere without her. And it starts there, but it keeps going on. You get this accepting group that has no judgment over each other. The one scene which I really loved, which was just heartbreaking, where it's Anne Cusack's character who can't find her name, Shirley Baker, because she can't read.
Yes.
There's no snarky comments from anyone. You just have the one character who, I forget her name, but she was in Mad About You. She plays Helena's sister.
Right.
She comes and just helps her. And then we get
she says, tell me your name.
Yeah.
Let's look.
And then we get like a little joke on it later. Not a joke at her expense, but a joke about her learning. When we have Madonna's character teaching her to read, and it's like a smutty
it's like
novel.
a Harlequin, yeah.
Yeah. And she's, it's going to get really good right now.
Oh, it gets really good up here. Yeah.
You have Madonna's character who, in so many other movies, everyone else would be either jealous or angry about her or judgmental about that she was like a dancer in some club.
Yeah.
That's not the case here. They just celebrate that aspect of her.
They just really seem to love her.
Yeah. Yeah, so sports movies at their best are a microcosm of something bigger, and there's very few movies that have a female cast like this that is so supportive. It shows the tribulations, of course, between these sisters, but it's about something even bigger than just that one pair of sisters. It's about the sisterhood of athletes who are doing this all for the first time, and they're doing this all together. And that's why this is a great movie.
I agree. I feel like that's such a good note to like end on, because we're just like, everyone feels good.
Yeah. It's a good movie. If you somehow haven't seen A League of Their Own, go watch it. You're not going to regret it. It's 2 hours. It flies by. I thought it would drag more than it did. I didn't feel that at all.
It flew by. Like, it felt like a 90-minute movie.
So, I love it. You love it?
I love it. You love it.
Wow. What a movie. A League of
We
Their Own.
love it.
We love it.
Are we going to high five?
Is that something we do now?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was pretty good. That was also 10, I believe.
High 10. Well, it was so good I needed both hands.
That's true. This is a double high five movie. Well, I'm so happy that I was able to bring you something that you love this much. All right, well, that's the end for today. Bye, everyone.
Bye.